The Obama administration has bet and sometimes lost heavily on green energy. Think of Solyndra, for example. But that has not stopped it from pushing on in ways that some critics say evades congressional oversight. For the first time since the Carter administration, solar panels are going up on the roof of the White House. It's part of a mandate towards renewables in the federal government, but also a symbolic gesture that the president is plowing ahead with his green energy agenda, regardless of congressional opposition.
He said that he wasn't going to wait for Congress, but that he had administrative authorities, and it was time to start utilizing those more effectively in a more concerted way.
The Obama administration is being strategically brilliant by doing this behind the scenes, and they're going to achieve everything that UN treaties and cap and trade and even carbon taxes could have achieved through the invisibility of federal regulations.
But EPA's regulatory battle against global warming did encounter a huge headwind this week. In a suit brought by the Landmark Legal Foundation, a federal judge ruled that EPA's responses to Freedom of Information Act requests for alias email accounts used by EPA Administrator Lisa Jackson and others, quote, contain numerous inconsistencies and reversals which undermine confidence in their truthfulness. He ruled that Landmark can now depose senior EPA officials about the alias emails. A day later, two Republican lawmakers, Congressman Darrell Issa and Senator David Vitter, wrote former Administrator Jackson, demanding all her personal emails over the last 4 years that relate to her official duties. They're concerned the emails were, quote, a deliberate attempt to circumvent federal transparency laws and congressional oversight. The scrutiny comes amidst what some believe is administration intolerance for any dissent in the global warming debate, as evidenced by these comments from Interior Secretary Sally Jewell.
I hope there are no climate change deniers in the Department of the Interior.
What they're saying is, if you are a global warming skeptic and you work for the Obama administration, either by appointee or by a career civil service, you better keep your mouth shut and you better not express your views.
But dissent is indeed growing, based in part on criticism from dozens of highly credited skeptics who say that temperature averages have stalled for the last 15 years. In fact, some scientists from Russia are now predicting a new mini ice age based upon the lack of sunspot activity. Well, here to talk about all of this stuff is Hogan Gidley, former communications director for Rick Santorum, and Chuck Rocha, president of Solidarity Strategies. Welcome to you both. Good to see you.
Thanks, Doug.
Chuck, I'd like to start off with you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Why has the EPA been so evasive when it comes to these kinds of FOIA requests, so evasive when it comes to Congress asking them for the science behind some of their clean air regulations, science that some opponents believe has been politicized? Why?
Well, the biggest complaint in Washington, D.C. is that nothing is getting done. And when the EPA gets out there and tries to actually get something done because Congress won't do anything, people keep throwing up one roadblock after another. If the administration and the EPA are going to do things that make us less dependent on foreign oil and tries to make our water cleaner and our air more pure, then I'm all in for this.
Hogan, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, sure. It seems like every single federal government acronym that has any relationship directly with this president or this White House is in some type of scandal. And the problem is, whether it's the NSA, the IRS, now the EPA, it seems as though each of those scandals is based on a purely political motivation, trying to push forth some radical agenda that nobody wants. These guys want you to think green energy is right around the corner. And if it were, then the Solyndras of the world that have been pumped with billions of dollars of federal money would be going gangbusters instead of going bust. The problem is, this stuff is great. We're all for conservation. Conservative is in the name conservatism, for heaven's sakes. I want green energy. The problem is, it's really far off, and if it were this close, private companies would be all over it, and we'd be seeing much quicker advances and a much quicker turn toward it if it were right around the corner, as they would have you believe.
You know, Hogan, in that piece that just aired, Mark Morano from the website Climate Depot, who is a skeptic himself, describes the Obama administration's regulatory strategy here is a stroke of genius because it can achieve all the goals of the UN IPPC, all the goals of cap and trade without the impediments of Congress. What do you make of that?
Sure. What a stroke of genius is how this president has figured out how to put solar panels on top of the White House and stick us with a bill. That's what's amazing here. Look, by their own admission, this is 97% cheaper than the Carter administration's attempt to put solar panels on its White House. And even with that 97% savings, it won't even pay for itself for 8 years, which means, once again, here's another bill to the taxpayer that he's sticking us with. Look, this is a much bigger issue with this White House, and if this Democrat administration has any chance of accomplishing anything, it's going to have to clean up some of these scandals. Chances are it probably won't, and chances are this is, for all intents and purposes, kind of a lame duck president moving forward. But as we talk about moving into bigger things in the upcoming election, let's take a 30,000-look view at this. It's going to be very difficult for Democrats to run on a bigger government platform when it seems like at every turn the government is embroiled in scandal after scandal that's hurting this nation, bankrupting this nation, and quite frankly eroding the trust that people have in their elected officials.
Mm-hmm. Chuck, I want to throw another question your way. You know, the very foundation of science is skepticism, challenging assumptions and preconceived notions. And in fact, if you look historically, you know, some of the great scientists of all time, Copernicus, Galileo, Newton, Einstein, these are all people who turned the accepted wisdom on its head. Yet the Obama administration seems to demonize people who are skeptical of climate change. Why do they do that? Why do they reject this process of science as being skeptical as its very nature?
Doug, you're exactly right, and it is good to question. But when you have 99.5% of all scientists who says the planet is getting warmer, when your documentation shows that last year was the hottest year on record, when we want to clean our air and keep our water clean, that's not about a political issue. It's about common sense. Sure, challenge everything you can challenge, but when the facts hit you in the face, you can't run away from those facts. President Obama said he wanted to take an all-of-the-above approach. That's why they're putting solar panels on the White House. That's also why oil production in this country is at the highest it's ever been and gone up every year while he's been in the presidency, because we have to do everything we can as Americans to become less dependent on foreign oil, but also protect our planet.
All right, Chuck Rocha, you get the last word there. Thank you very much. Hogan Gidley, thank you too. Great to see you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Doug.
Thanks. God bless.